Grammar Lesson 2.3, Present Tense of the verb estar. Do you remember in Unit 1 when we learned about the verb ser, which means to be? Hopefully these conjugations look familiar to you. These are different ways we change the verb ser to show that someone is or a group of people are a certain way. So the conjugations we used with ser were yo soy, tú eres, él, ella, or usted es, nosotros somos, vosotros sois, ellos, ellas, ustedes son. Today we're going to talk about a new verb that also means to be, and this verb is estar. Ser and estar both mean to be, but they're both used in different ways. You may recall from Unit 1, I taught you an acronym, and it spelled out the word doctor that outlined some different instances in which you might use the verb ser. That included anytime you're talking about dates, occupation, characteristics, time, origin and possession, and then relation. Estar also has an acronym that I like to use to help me remember when to use that verb, and this acronym will spell out the word place. So we use estar when we're talking about position, location, actions, condition, or emotion. If that's confusing for you, the main thing for you to remember is that ser is used to describe permanent characteristics and estar is used to describe changing conditions. Usually, there are a few exceptions, but typically this is how you can remember to use ser or if you need to use estar. Okay, now that I have told you a little bit about when we use estar, let's talk about how to conjugate this verb. This conjugation chart looks a lot like the conjugation chart for the verb ser when you look at the English meanings of the words. I am, you are, he is, she is, you are, etc. When we actually conjugate the verb, however, it's going to look totally different than the way ser did. If you remember with AR verbs, the first thing you need to do for conjugating is take off the AR ending of the verb, and then you're going to replace it with something different. I'm going to go ahead and show you the stem of the verb in the chart, and you can go ahead and copy this down into your notes. So with each of the different subject pronouns like yo, nosotros, tú, vosotros, etc., you're going to use that stem of the verb, est or est. Okay? Hopefully you have all of those copied down now. Let's talk about the different endings for this verb. Some of them are very similar to the AR verb endings that you're used to, but there are a couple of things that are slightly different, so make sure you take note of that as you copy down these endings. The nosotros form looks exactly like any other AR verb, so to say we are would be nosotros estamos. The vosotros form also follows the regular vosotros conjugation for AR verbs, so you would say vosotros estáis, for you are, if you're talking to a group of people and you're in Spain. That's why I refer to it as the y'all of Spanish, because it's not quite as common as the ustedes form. Ellos, ellas, and ustedes are going to conjugate almost like any other third-person plural form of an AR verb. However, the difference is that you're going to have an accent over the letter A in this form. So ellos están, ellas están, ustedes están. You can see they each have an accent over the A. We're going to skip the yo form for just a moment. If you look at the singular side of our chart, the to form also follows the regular AR verb conjugation, except for that you have an accent over the A in the to form as well. Tú estás, you are. You guessed it, for él, ella, and usted, we're going to follow the regular conjugation pattern with an accent over the A. Él está, ella está, usted está. The most irregular form of this verb, and the one that's probably the trickiest to remember, is the yo form. Typically on an AR verb, you would just put an O for the ending on the yo form, but this time we put an OY. So to say I am is yo estoy. Now that you know how to conjugate the verb, let's look at a few examples. An example of when you would use estar to express the position of something. You might want to say, the book is on the table. El libro está en la mesa. Maybe you want to talk about the location of someone, telling where they are. He is in the library. You would say, él está en la biblioteca. Something important to keep in mind about location, and you might write this in your notes out to this side. Location is a little bit tricky with ser and estar. Typically, you're going to use estar if you're talking about the location of a person, a place, or a thing. Ser, however, is used when you're talking about the location of an event. So you might just take note of that. That location can be a little bit tricky because sometimes it's ser, but usually it's estar. We use estar with actions to express that an action is taking place. So we are running. You can say nosotros estamos corriendo. The verb or the word corriendo is called a gerund, and that's something you guys will learn about a little bit later, but it's kind of a different form of a verb using a tense called the present progressive tense. Right now, don't worry too much about that. We'll get into that in the coming units. Estar is also used for condition. So if you want to say I am sick, you would say yo estoy enferma. Or if you happen to be a male, yo estoy enfermo. And the last one is emotion. So if I want to say you are sad, I would use estar. Tú estás triste. I hope these examples help you understand how and when to use estar. We will be practicing it more in class, but if you can remember the acronym doctor, place, to help you keep straight when to use ser and when to use estar, then you are already off to a good start.